She said, "Stop acting like we're married. You don't get a say in where I go or who I'm with." Everyone laughed. I just smiled and stayed quiet. But when she came back from her weekend away, her key didn't work, and the neighbor told her exactly why. I, 32 male, am an architect. I mention that because my job is literally about building things that last, structures that have strong foundations, can weather storms, and don't collapse when the wind changes direction. My personal life, however, turned out to be built on quicksand. I like rules. I like clear lines. I read the fine print. And for the last 2 years, I was dating a woman who treated fine print like a suggestion and my bank account like an infinite resource. Let's call her the girlfriend, 27F. When we met, she was vibrant, exciting, and seemingly independent. She worked in marketing. But about 6 months into our relationship, marketing turned into freelance brand consulting, which eventually morphed into aspiring lifestyle influencer. That basically meant she spent 6 hours a day filming Get Ready With Me videos, and the rest of the time complaining that the algorithm was shadow banning her genius. 8 months ago, she moved into my apartment. It wasn't a formal decision. It started with a toothbrush, then a drawer, then 3 suitcases, and finally her cat, Mr. Whiskers, who hated me. My apartment is, or was, in a very nice high-security building downtown. I was the only one on the lease. I paid the rent. I paid the electricity, the water, the high-speed internet she needed for uploading, and the premium subscriptions for every streaming service known to man. I didn't mind providing. I was raised with old-school values. If you can take care of your partner, you do. But a partnership implies 2 people carrying the load, even if the weight distribution is different. I was carrying the sofa. She was sitting on it, telling me I wasn't lifting it high enough. The dynamic shifted gradually. Started with small entitlements. Can you pick up my dry cleaning? Became, why didn't you get the express service? Can we go out to dinner? Became, I booked a table at Nobu. Transfer me $500. I let it slide because I loved her. I thought she was just stressed about her career transition. I was an idiot. The breaking point didn't happen in a screaming match. It happened on a Tuesday night at a tapas bar that cost more per plate than my weekly grocery budget. It was her best friend's birthday. We were squeezed around a table meant for 4 people, but there were 8 of us, her clique. 3 other women who were all versions of the same person, glued to their phones, vaguely condescending, and 3 guys who seemed nice enough but were clearly just accessories to their girlfriends. The conversation drifted towards summer plans. The air conditioning was struggling against the humidity, and I was already irritated because I had worked a 10-hour day and just wanted to go home. "We should totally do a group trip," Dave suggested. He looked at me. "You guys in?" We were thinking Cabo or maybe Tulum. Get a massive Airbnb, split the costs. It would be epic. I nodded, taking a sip of my overpriced sparkling water. That sounds great, actually. I have about 10 vacation days banked that I need to use before September. Cabo sounds relaxing. The girlfriend made a noise. It wasn't a cough. It was a sharp, derisive snort. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought she might check her own brain for damage. She didn't look at me. She looked at her best friend, Jessica. "We aren't going to Cabo with them," she said, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of the restaurant. I paused, setting my glass down. "Why not? We were just talking about a beach trip last week." "Because," she said, finally turning to me with a look of pure exhaustion, like explaining this was draining her soul, "I'm already planning a trip. With my friends." The table went quiet. Dave looked awkward. Jessica looked like she was trying not to smirk. "Okay," I said, trying to keep things light. "I didn't know you booked something. When is it?" "Next weekend," she said. "I'm going to Miami." My stomach dropped. "Next weekend? You didn't mention anything. We have tickets to that jazz festival on Saturday. I bought them 2 months ago." "Sell them," she waved her hand dismissively. "I don't have to run every single movement of my life by you. It's ridiculous." "I'm not asking you to run it by me," I said, feeling the heat rise in my neck. "But we live together. It's common courtesy to tell me if you're leaving the state, especially if we have plans. And who is going?" "Me, Jessica, and a few others," she said, vague and defensive. "Is it just girls?" I asked. "Oh my God," she groaned, throwing her head back. "Here we go, the Inquisition." It's a fair question, I said quietly. It's a group thing, she snapped. Why are you so insecure? It is so unattractive. I'm not insecure, I said, my voice steady but cold. I'm confused. You're canceling our plans last minute to go on a trip I didn't know about, using money I assume you don't have since you asked me to cover your credit card bill last week. That was the wrong thing to say, or maybe the right thing. Her face went red. She slammed her hand on the table. You know what? This is exactly why I need a break. You are suffocating. You think because you pay the rent you own me? I never said that. You imply it, she shouted. People at other tables were looking. I hated scenes. Stop acting like we're married. You don't get a say in where I go or who I'm with, okay? The silence that followed was heavy, thick, and suffocating. Then Jessica giggled. He really does act like a dad, doesn't he? That broke the tension for them. The whole table erupted in laughter. The guys chuckled nervously, looking at their plates. The girls laughed openly, pointing at my expression. Stop acting like we're married. The words echoed in my head. It was a clarifying moment. You know how in movies the camera zooms in and the background goes blurry? That happened. I looked at her, really looked at her. I didn't see the woman I loved. I saw a stranger who viewed me as an obstacle to her fun, but a necessary wallet to fund it. She was right. We weren't married. I didn't yell. I didn't flip the table. I didn't demand an apology. I just smiled. It was a small, tight smile. I picked up my fork and took a bite of the calamari. You're right, I said softly. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Good, she huffed, reaching for the pitcher of sangria. Now let's talk about outfits for the club. I sat there for another 45 minutes. I was a ghost at the table. When the bill came, the waiter put it in the middle. Usually, I pick it up. This time, I calculated exactly what I ordered, 1 sparkling water, 1 appetizer. I put down cash for my portion and a generous tip. What are you doing? She whispered as I stood up. Paying my share, I said. You're not my husband. I wouldn't want to overstep. I walked out to the car. She had to scramble to get Jessica to spot her, and she came out to the parking lot 10 minutes later, fuming. The car ride home was a masterclass in gaslighting. You embarrassed me, she seethed as I merged onto the highway. I embarrassed you? Yes, acting all cheap and petty. It was a joke, okay? I was just
Stressed. But you have to punish me in front of my friends? I didn't punish anyone. I gave you autonomy. Whatever, you're ruining the vibe before Miami. Just don't talk to me tonight. Understood, I said. We got home. I slept on the couch. I told her my back was hurting. She didn't care. She was too busy FaceTiming Jessica, trying on bikinis I had bought her for a trip we took last year. For the next 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, I engaged in what psychologists call gray rocking. I became as interesting as a rock. I gave short, non-committal answers. I didn't ask about her trip. I didn't ask who was going. I didn't offer to drive her to the airport. She interpreted this as me sulking, which gave her more ammunition to tell her friends how toxic I was being. Friday morning, 4 a.m., her alarm went off. I heard her thumping around, zipping up a suitcase that looked brand new. I'm leaving, she announced, standing in the living room where I was drinking coffee. My Uber is here. Have a safe flight, I said, not looking up from my tablet. That's it? No kiss? You need space, I said. I'm respecting that. She scoffed. You are so childish. Don't wait up on Monday. I might stay an extra day if the weather is good. Okay. And hey, she paused at the door. Can you transfer me like $200 just for emergencies? I'm tight this week, I lied. Market volatility. Ugh, you are useless sometimes. She slammed the door. I listened to the lock click. I walked to the window and watched her get into the Uber. I watched the taillights fade into the pre-dawn darkness. The moment she was gone, I didn't collapse in tears. I didn't rage. I felt a surge of energy I hadn't felt in months. I went to my home office and opened the safe. I took out my lease agreement. I sat down and read it, specifically Clause 14, Section B, Unauthorized Occupants. Guests staying longer than 14 consecutive days within a 6-month period must be added to the lease. Failure to do so constitutes a material breach of contract and is grounds for immediate termination of tenancy or eviction. She had been there 8 months. I had never added her. Her credit score was a disaster, low 400s due to unpaid student loans and a shopping addiction. I knew she wouldn't pass the background check, so I had just let her stay. I was protecting her. Now I was going to use that protection as a trapdoor. I waited until 9 a.m. when the leasing office opened. I put on my best suit. I walked down to the lobby and asked to speak to Brenda, the property manager. Brenda liked me. I was quiet, I paid early, and I sent Christmas cards. "Brenda," I said, sitting in her office, "I have a serious situation to disclose. I am in violation of my lease." Brenda frowned, adjusting her glasses. "What do you mean?" "I have an unauthorized occupant living in my unit. She has been there for months. I know this is a breach of contract. The relationship has ended, but she has established residency de facto, even though she isn't on the lease. I need to vacate the unit to rectify this breach immediately." Brenda looked at me. She was a smart woman. She knew exactly what I was doing. If I just kicked her out, she could claim squatter's rights or illegal eviction. If the lease was terminated because of a violation I reported myself, the unit had to be surrendered empty. "Well," Brenda said slowly, "if you are admitting to a breach, we would technically have to issue a notice to cure or quit. Or, I interrupted, I can surrender the apartment voluntarily today. I will pay the penalty fee, 2 months' rent, right now. I will vacate the premises entirely by Sunday evening. The unit will be empty and clean." "And the occupant?" "She is away until Monday afternoon. She has no legal contract with you. Once I surrender the keys, the apartment reverts to your possession. Anyone trying to enter without a key would be trespassing, correct?" Brenda allowed a tiny professional smile to touch her lips. "Technically, yes. If the leaseholder surrenders the unit and we take possession, we change the locks immediately for security." "Perfect," I said. I pulled out my checkbook. Writing a check for $6,200 hurt. It really hurt. But I viewed it as the cost of removing a tumor. "Here is the penalty fee. Here is the rent for the remainder of this month. I'll have maintenance schedule a lock change on Monday morning at 8 a.m. You have until Sunday night." The clock was ticking. I called a moving company I had used for commercial projects. "I need a full pack and move, rush job, today. I don't care about the overtime rate." By noon, a crew of 4 guys was in my apartment. This was the tricky part. I had to be meticulous. In my state, you can't just throw someone's stuff in the trash. That's a lawsuit. I needed to be bulletproof. "Okay," I told the foreman. "Everything in the master bedroom closet on the left side is hers. Everything on the right is mine. The vanity in the bathroom, pack it all in boxes labeled hers. The pink gaming chair, hers. The collection of Stanley cups, hers." I had rented a climate-controlled storage unit about 10 miles away. I paid for 3 months in advance in cash. "Take all the boxes labeled hers to this storage unit. Take my stuff to this address." I had secured a temporary corporate apartment through a connection at my firm. It wasn't home, but it was safe. Watching the apartment disassemble was surreal. It took them 6 hours. They wrapped her furniture carefully. They packed her clothes. I made sure they took a video inventory of her items going into the boxes, so she couldn't claim I stole her jewelry or broke her electronics. By Saturday evening, the apartment was an echo chamber. I walked through the rooms. The holes in the walls where our photos used to hang looked like eyes staring at me. I hired a cleaning crew to come in on Sunday morning. I wanted the place to smell like bleach and lemon, not her perfume. On Sunday afternoon, I did my final walkthrough. I took a continuous 4K video of the entire empty apartment, opening every drawer and closet to prove it was pristine. I drove to the storage facility. I put a heavy-duty lock on her unit. I taped an envelope to the door of the unit with the key inside, but that wasn't for her yet. I took the spare key and put it in a separate envelope. Sunday, 5:45 p.m. I walked into the leasing office. "I'm checking out," I told the weekend manager. "Here are my keys. Here is the fob, here is the mailbox key. The unit is vacant. I handed him the envelope containing the storage unit key and the address. This is for a previous guest who might come looking. Please give this to them if they inquire. It contains access to their personal property. Will do, he said. I got into my car and drove away. I blocked her number on everything except standard SMS. I needed a record of her texts for evidence, but I silenced the notifications. I unfollowed her on all socials. I went to my temporary place, ordered a pizza, and waited for the hurricane. It made landfall on Monday at 11:15 a.m. I was in a meeting with a structural engineer when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Then again, and again. It buzzed continuously for 30 seconds. I checked it under the table. 14 missed calls. Text preview. What is going on? I put the phone away and finished my meeting. I wasn't going to jump. By 1 p.m., I had 52 missed calls and a wall of text messages that read like a descent into madness. 11:15 a.m. My key isn't working. 11:17 a.m. Seriously? Did you change the battery in the lock? Let me in, I need to pee. 11:30 a.m. I went to the office. They said you moved out? 11:32 a.m. Is this a joke? Pick up the phone. 11:45 a.m. Where is my stuff? You stole my stuff. 12 p.m. I am calling the police. 12:15 a.m. You are a psychopath. I hate you. 12:30 p.m. Please pick up. I have nowhere to go. I sat at my desk, eating a sandwich, feeling a cold, calm satisfaction. At 2:30 p.m., the receptionist buzzed me. Sir, there are police officers here to see you. My heart did a little kick, but I was prepared. I grabbed my file folder, labeled The Exit, and walked to the lobby. 2 officers stood there. They looked annoyed, probably because dealing with domestic disputes is their least favorite thing. Are you my name? The taller one asked. I am. We have a report filed by a Miss Girlfriend's name alleging illegal eviction and grand larceny. She says you threw her out and stole all her possessions. I didn't evict anyone, I said, keeping my voice level. I terminated my lease. I moved out. The apartment complex took possession of the unit. She claims she lived there. She was a guest, I corrected. She was not on the lease. In fact, her presence was a violation of the lease, which is why I had to terminate it. I decided to move. Since she wasn't there, and she had no legal right to the space, I couldn't leave her inside. However, I did not steal her property. I opened my folder. I laid out the photos of the professional movers packing her boxes, the inventory list, the receipt for the paid-off storage unit. I hired professional movers at my own expense to pack her belongings so they wouldn't be considered abandoned property, I explained. They are currently in a climate-controlled unit at U-Store-It. I paid for 3 months of rent. The key to the unit was left with the leasing office for her to collect. The officers looked at the paperwork. They looked at each other. So she can get her stuff? The officer asked. Yes, she just needs to go to the leasing office, get the envelope, and go to the storage unit. Nothing is missing. And you paid for 3 months? Yes, I'm not a monster. I just don't want to live with her anymore. The officer nodded, handing me back the papers. This is a civil matter, but it looks like you've gone above and beyond to protect her property. We'll inform her that no theft occurred. They left. I went back to work. That evening, I got the tea from Mrs. Higgins, my old neighbor across the hall. I called her to apologize for the noise. Oh, honey, Mrs. Higgins laughed, a sound like dry leaves rustling. It was marvelous. She was banging on the door, screaming your name. She looked rough, like she hadn't slept. What happened? Well, the police came. She was crying, playing the victim. When they told her you hadn't stolen anything and that her stuff was in storage, she lost it. She threw her phone on the ground. She screamed, "He can't do this to me. Who does he think he is?" Did she leave? Eventually, Brenda came out and gave her the envelope. She tried to get into your old apartment again, but the code was changed. She sat in the hallway crying for 20 minutes until security escorted her out. She asked if she could stay with me. Did she not?
She did. I told her, "My guest room is for family only," and I shut the door. Mrs. Higgins is a national treasure. But the story didn't end there. Entitlement is a hell of a drug, and withdrawal is painful. She had nowhere to go. Her parents were in Ohio and had boundaries regarding her coming back home. Apparently, I wasn't the first bridge she burned. Her friends she went to Miami with? Well, here is the twist. I found out later through a mutual acquaintance that the girls' trip was actually a mixed trip. She had been trying to hook up with a guy named Kyle, a fitness influencer she'd been sliding into the DMs of. She thought she had him secured. She thought she was going to come back, dump me, and upgrade to Kyle. But Kyle wasn't interested in a girlfriend. He hooked up with her in Miami, but when she started talking about moving in with him because her ex was crazy, he ghosted her. So she was homeless, single, and her belongings were in a metal box on the edge of town. For 2 days, it was quiet. Then the smear campaign started. She posted a TikTok. It was a masterpiece of acting. She sat in her car, tears streaming down her face, no makeup for effect, telling the world how her abusive, narcissist, controlling ex threw her on the street without warning. She claimed I destroyed her property. She claimed I left her with nothing. The video went viralish, 50,000 views. The comments were brutal. "Burn his house down." If you want more stories like this, hit the subscribe button.